Let's bring in our guest to discuss this. National Trial Attorney Michael Jaafar is with us. And Michael, we just heard the second witness for the defense. This is an auto forensic engineer. How do you think he did? And has he put the defense in a position where Bud Ackerman shouldn't have to take the stand to tell his side?
Well, you you ended that question with a second very important question. Let me answer the first one because it's a little bit easier, but I'm glad that you asked both of those questions. So here's the thing. You always go back to the opening statements of both sides because the opening statements is where they make promises, right? So you look at the opening statement of the defense and they made the promise. I mean, hey, they're not even debating that he hit him, right? They're debating whether or not it was intentional, right? Even when the state was making their opening statement, they talked about the definition of malice and we're going to prove malice. And then he got out of the car and yelled at him and all this other stuff. And then when the defense did their opening statements, they said, well, we have a different side of the story. And then they told their story. And then they said, you didn't think about it that way. And the state didn't tell you that. So at the end of the day, these experts are very, 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 very important for that promise that was made by the defense, right? So I think that it cannot hurt. It's absolutely necessary to have experts to say that because it brings into question, if a jury believes it, obviously, it brings into question the total nature of the incident, because we all know how he died. He died at the hands of the Ford F-250 hitting either him or his car or both, right? So the jury are going to be sitting down wanting to know whether or not it was intentional. So I do think that these experts are important. Do I think he's going to testify? That's a tough one. I always tell my friends, it depends on the vibe you get from your customer when you're in a private conversation with them. I'm talking about the defense attorney and the defendant, right? If you feel that your person, if you ask them the same question 3 times and it gives you 3 different answers, you don't put them on the stand. There's almost very, very few instances where you would want to put your client on the stand. But if you ask him a question 3 times and he answers it 3 times, and then you test your client further and to see if you can invoke emotion, and they don't become emotional. We've seen witnesses that testify in their own trial and emotion matters and they cry, and that's helpful, but everybody emotes differently. For all you know, this defendant, when he emotes and when he cries, it seems fake. There are some people who are genuine. They're at a funeral, they're really sad, but they look like they're not really crying because everybody emotes differently. So you have to get a sense of your customer in a private room to find out whether or not you put them on the stand. However, if this person will hold up on the stand, if I'm his defense attorney, I'm putting him on the stand. I'm hoping that he cries. I'm hoping that he says, you know, I love my wife. Our marriage was falling apart. Our divorce was going to be finalized soon. And he wanted to talk to me. I couldn't say no, but I was not trying to hurt the guy. I've never done anything like this before. And, you know, that would be a very good boon to your defense case because it would allow the jury to see. We know that this jury saw a lot of emotion out of the state. The prosecutor in his opening statement, he was very charming. I think, you know, they say primacy and recency. I think if you end the case with your client on the stand and he's a good witness, I think it will play well for the jury. So that's my thought.
Michael, what would you do with him drinking? So we had one witness for the state talk about the fact that he walked into the bar, the defendant did, he was drunk or he had been drinking. So what would you do with that when he's on the stand? Because a lot of people are like, well, the guy was drunk. He didn't know what he was doing, and he decided he was going to kill the guy.
That's one of the things that knocks against you if you're deciding whether or not to put him on the stand. But we know also that the victim was drunk. Now, that's not really relevant to whether or not Bud Ackerman hit him, obviously, because that's a different person. But, you know, it would be difficult. I'd be grappling with it. That's one of the things that goes against putting him on the stand. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like one of the things that the jury's going to know that one way or the other. You have to decide whether or not because, look, his courtroom demeanor, without him getting on the stand, he kind of just looks, you know, nonplussed by the whole entire situation. So it can help to put him on the stand. For all you know, in the minds of these juries, they are really, really casting judgment against his stoicism in that courtroom, and they want to see more emotion because the person basically got ran over. So to answer your question, Kelly, I would just deal with it. I would have no choice. If every other box is checked in favor of him testifying or for the need for him to testify, I would just deal with it the best I could, because at the end of the day, your defendant, in this case, has pot marks whether he testifies or not.
And we're getting closer and closer to knowing whether or not he's going to make that decision, because the judge wants this trial really to wrap up today, at the latest tomorrow. They're going to go into the weekend because of all the delays for the weather there in South Carolina. Let's get to a break. The coming from attorney Alex Spiro, who represents Tupac's family. Now, this investigation had been previously reported by unnamed sources, but earlier today, Spiro confirmed to our Court TV team that he and a team of investigators has been hired.
Sean Combs allegedly had business dealings with Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, who will go on trial next March for the murder of Tupac. This was back in 1996. Some have speculated that Diddy ordered Tupac's death. That, of course, is just a theory at this point, and we are monitoring the developments in both the Tupac murder trial and the federal indictment of Sean Diddy Combs. So a lot of information to come on that one.
And the case that continues to roll on. Let's bring in National Trial Attorney Michael Jaafar just to talk about this new news of an investigative team that is been hired by Tupac's family. We don't have more details about what they found so far and exactly what avenues they are taking to do that, but what does that say to you? What do you think is happening, and how serious is this when someone hires an investigative team in a murder trial that's being handled by authorities, but this is a private entity requesting this?
Julia, I always say, landslides don't happen slowly, right? You'll be standing on the side of a mountain admiring its beauty and glamour, and then 1 second later, you're buried in mud, right? This does not shock me. This does not surprise me. I can promise you this is not the last thing that we find out about people investigating Diddy and what he's done. This is not the first. We know of an attorney now who represents hundreds of families who are suing him for, alleged, freak-offs and sexual misconduct. So what this tells me is that it's just a piling on. Pretty much people knew for decades what we're going to start finding out things that people have speculated on for decades, and they're just going to pile on, because at the end of the day, how's he going to defend himself at this point? He's got a ton of money, he's got a ton of attorneys, but even if you have unlimited money and unlimited resources, if you are sued, by 100 different people, 100 different times, 100 different theories, at the end of the day, you as a professional defendant operating from a jail cell, you cannot overcome that. You just can't do it. And people know that they can pile on. People who probably wanted to go after this guy just feared going after him because they feared the retribution. They feared that, they walk into an attorney's office, hey, I have this theory against Diddy. And the attorney would tell them, okay, do you have $1 million to pay me for me to waste my time, waste your money and go after him? No, I don't. Can you do it on contingency? No, I won't do it on contingency, because if I do it on contingency, he's going to spend millions of dollars to crush us, right? So that's exactly why these theories have been rebuffed. Right now, people now have, any attorney will jump up and say, yeah, I'll represent you. I'll sue Diddy. I'll be on the headlines. I'll sue Diddy for you tomorrow, right? Yeah, I'll do it on contingency. At the end of the day, that's what's happening. You're going to see many, many more instances of people coming up with theories against Diddy. With respect to this specific one, as a kid growing up, I loved Tupac, and there was, when we were in high school and Tupac died, everybody said, hey, Diddy did it, right? And it was kind of like, back then it was Puff Daddy, right? So a lot of people say that. I don't know if what the quality of this type of theory is, but hey, I'm going to be interested. I'm going to be glued to the TV to see what happened. The connection between Diddy and Keefe D. Let's see. But at the end of the day, that's what's happening. It's a piling on.
Yeah, I mean, back in July, I think there was a report that Sean Diddy Combs had said, any kind of connection here, this theory is absolutely ridiculous, absolutely false. So we'll have to see what comes of this. But I believe we have some sound we can play, Michael, and then we're going to get your reaction to it on the other side.
So it's Pharrell, you, Puffy, Zip, and a bunch of Southsiders. And what Puffy makes kind of an announcement?
Yeah, that was stupid as hell too,
What did you actually hear? What was the words? The best you can remember what he says.
He said he'd give us anything for them dudes there,
Give us 5 names of people who would say, yeah, we heard Puffy say that.
They don't have to come from,
Al, Corey, Wynn, Dirt Rock, all of them was tell you.
Now, this was before the arrest of Diddy, Michael, but what do you take from that? I mean, it's just everything, as you just mentioned, it just keeps piling on.
Yeah, with this specific one, I'm very familiar with this exact case with this person. What you heard here was not credible, right? Even if it's true, it's just not credible. It's too old, it's too stale, it's not credible. What happens in that life is people will talk and talk, and this Keefe D has proven himself to be the type of person who wants attention and talks a lot. And how do you get attention? The way you bring attention, if you're this type of a person, is you bring up the names of people who are much bigger than you. They say you punch up, you don't punch down. He's not going to get attention if he says, hey, my friend here, my neighbor was the person who was behind, him, and these are the 5 people that helped me kill Diddy. No, to kill Tupac. No, they'll say Diddy did it, all these other people. So at the end of the day, it's just not credible. I don't think this is going to go anywhere. People have hunted down the cause of the death of Tupac, and now they've focused on this Keefe D guy, but I don't think other people are going to be brought into it. I just think it's bunk.
All right, Mike, well, thank you so much. My time is up, and Julia, you are going to be picking up coverage.
That's right.